While the Secret Six fought off the Suicide Squad's both living and dead members during their Darkest Night tie-ins, Lex Luthor had a very different experience. In order to battle the undead Black Lanterns, the heads of the various Lantern Corps needed more allies, so they deputized who they could. This included cool ideas and designs like Blue Lantern Flash, Indigo Lantern Atom, and Violet Lantern Wonder Woman. But most notable was Orange Lantern Lex Luthor. For those unfamiliar, Lex Luthor is the main enemy of Superman. He is a genius industrialist, a cold and efficient businessman, and he's not above the manipulation or murder of anyone who displeases him. For a character like him to get a power ring was a pretty big surprise. But the Lantern Rings don't choose a user based on their moral code. They choose based on potential. And the Orange Lantern of Avarice could tell that Lex Luthor wanted everything. Consumed by greed in his Orange Lantern light armor, Lex became a problem unto himself during Darkest Night. He was eventually stopped and stripped of his ring, but now he had tasted a level of power previously unheard of, the ability to make his thoughts reality. And he witnessed the abilities of the Black Lanterns to rise from the grave and to stave off death. What man doesn't want to defeat death? The events of Blackest Night radically changed the entire world of the Lantern Corps and threatened all of human existence. But it left Lex Luthor wanting more. So DC gave him more. In September of 2010, author Paul Cornell took over the writing duties of Action Comics and made Lex Luthor its main character. Action Comics, ironically, is a Superman title and one of DC's oldest. I think only Detective Comics has a longer run as a single series. So giving it to Luthor is a clever twist on Action Comics' normal narrative, and Lex would end up headlining it from issue 890 to issue 900. At the time, I knew Paul Cornell's name from his work on Marvel's Captain Britain and MI-13 ongoing series, which I had loved. MI-13 was a weird book filled with weird characters, interesting ideas, and it was both deftly planned and masterfully executed. I miss it to this day. So when internet word got to me that Cornell was going to do work for DC, I was interested. When I heard that he'd be writing Lex Luthor on a mad quest for power throughout the DC universe, I was now skeptical, but still interested. Despite buying several issues of this run when it was first released, the only issue I have left of it is 896. For whatever reason, probably money issues, I never finished Cornell's run, and I got rid of the issues that happened before this one. That's a shame, as historically any comic that I get rid of is eventually purchased again, and I've grown to enjoy Cornell's writing even more in the interim. His Witches of Lichford novel series are great. They're mysterious, magical, charming, and threatening in a way that only the British seem able to do. Cornell is a seriously good writer. But what does any of this have to do with the Secret Six? Well, when Cornell pitched Action Comics, he gave his editors a list of characters that he would like to use for one reason or another. Among that list, Vandal Savage and the Secret Six. According to Cornell, he loved the Six and was pleased to be able to team up with Gail Simone for a crossover of their two books. After all, it was Lex Luthor who first put the Six together back in Villains United, and they're pretty decent at dealing with Vandal Savage. But when the Six are involved in anything else, well, nothing really ever goes according to plan. My name is Ben, and this is Comic Book Breakdown episode Secret 6.15, What Luthor Hath Wrought. Action Comics 896 opens with the Secret Six hidden in the rafters of a building. And these are some big ace rafters, as they have enough room and the structural support for Bane, who is a pretty big dude. Despite the ending of the Reptile Brain arc and King Shark joining the team, and Black Alice curing her father, thus negating any reason she has to be here, King Shark is not here, and Black Alice is. We also have Ragdoll, Jeanette, Catman, Scandal, and Deadshot. Who wants to know why they're saving Lex Luthor? Scandal flashes back to a few weeks ago. Luthor invited her to a business dinner, proud of the Six's ability to still be around and relatively free in this day and age. He can appreciate the desire to be one's own person. He's on his own quest for such a thing right now, and this quest may bring him into confrontation with certain parties. So he would like to hire the Six to defend him in case of just such an eventuality. He passes her an envelope, and Scandal looks inside at her payment. But her reaction is hard to read. To a certain degree, I think that's intentional. This is our hook as readers of the Secret Six. We want to know what Luthor could possibly offer her, so leaving it as a mystery keeps us involved. But artists Pete Woods and Brad Anderson don't really help us either. That final panel remains pulled out from Scandal's face, so it's hard to tell if she's surprised, touched, shocked, or horrified. Are those tears in her eyes, or is it just the lighting? Unfortunately, I can't tell. We bounce back to the Six in the present. The only person that Scandal has told about the payment is Bane, their leader, and he thinks that it's worth it. However, telling the team what it is would, quote, invite laughter at the expense of Scandal, unquote, so he's not talking. And while I like the mystery offer as a hook to keep us interested, I also think that this bit here with Bane is bad storytelling. Not telling the Six why they're doing this is pointless. If they do the job well, then they and we will know what the offer was, because they will get it. If they're going to laugh then, well, they can laugh now. Where the flashback dodge feels like a good way to keep the mystery, this dodge feels like a dodge. Catman even brushes it off, saying that this makes as much sense as anything else they do. And I'm not saying that the Six won't do a job for the money. I mean, they didn't even know what Smith was hiring them for in the Depths arc until they got to Devil's Island. Why not just have Scandal say boatloads of money and then reveal the personal motivator later? That's in character for all parties involved and is way more natural feeling than this. I would also like to note that Luthor takes credit for creating the Secret Six in his conversation with Scandal. She then argues the point. It's just a throwaway line, but she says that he didn't create the Six. This means that the Six are unaware of Luthor's role in their origin. However, during Depths, Scandal reacted to the news of Mockingbird's involvement as if it was Luthor. I called out Simone for this revelation during Depths, as the Six had no reason to know that Luthor was the first Mockingbird who assembled the team. But this is the first time that the Six and Luthor have crossed paths since Villains United, so nothing else built on that or contradicted that error. So who is making the continuity errors here? Simone for the initial screw-up, or Cornell for ignoring it? Scandal comments that Luthor's security is practically an army unto itself. They can handle almost any threat. They are there to handle the weird stuff, which is when Vandal Savage enters Luthor's boardroom, an axe in one hand and a detonator in the other. Ah, subtlety, thy name is not Vandal Savage. The immortal caveman, father of Scandal, demands that Luthor give him information regarding the Black Spheres. What are these Black Spheres? Why does Vandal have an interest in them? I don't know, and Cornell doesn't explain it at all. Luthor comments that he doesn't believe in whatever prophecy is motivating Vandal. He doesn't know what he'll do that, quote, brings you happiness, unquote. So while we don't know what those spheres are, we know Vandal is interested in them and that he's willing to fight for knowledge about them. I don't know what this prophecy is either or why Vandal believes it, but he does, which makes it real enough. We then cut away to something entirely different. A robot lookalike of Lois Lane, reporter for the Daily Planet and on-again, off-again love interest of Superman, gets rebooted by an African-American woman who is possessed by the telepathic mind clone of Mr. Mind. Sentences like that are why I love comic books. So almost Mr. Mind knows that Robo-Lois shot some of his underlings in Action Comics 890, infecting them with nanites. These nanites caused Mind's henchmen to dangle Luthor over the edge of his building. This means that Robo-Lois wanted him dangled off of the building. Mind guesses that she's working for somebody else, somebody who is playing against Mind's boss. But what could that mean? What could it mean? Robo-Lois shocks Mind's host body and walks away. Mind your own business, Mr. Mind. That whole scene plays into the bigger picture of Cornell's run, as opposed to the Six's story, and I have to admit to being intrigued by it. Luthor is one of those guys who's really manipulative, so if someone is playing him, then they have to be powerful and intelligent. And we have two players here, whoever they are, which bodes ill for Lex. Speaking of Lex, Deadshot decides that the best course of action is to shoot some folks and just to see what happens. He drops into the boardroom and fires on Vandal's men, although he hits surprisingly few of them. The Six's presence catches Vandal off guard just enough for Luthor to rush him, aiming for the detonator. The scuffle knocks it loose, and it bounces along the table. Scandal snatches it up at the last second, but doing so aims Vandal's attention on her. He came here seeking happiness, and here she is? Is his great happiness tied to her somehow? Scandal threatens to destroy the detonator, but Vandal says that would also detonate the bombs. That would kill Scandal, which would also make Vandal not happy, so the prophecy can't go that way. But why is she here, if not to bring him joy? Jesus Christ, Vandal, read the room, man. So the Savages start to argue when Robo-Lois enters the room. She's dressed in what looks like aviator's leathers and has some huge guns for arms. She has huge guns for arms, and she opens fire. So the Six are now being fired upon by Vandal's men and Luthor's Robo-Lois backup. Somebody's bound to get hurt, and it ends up being Scandal. She falls to the floor, bleeding, and Catman scoops up the detonator. Enraged at having his daughter harmed, Vandal grabs his axe and he bisects Robo-Lois. For a moment, the room goes quiet. Scandal, healed up, sits upright, surprised by her father's actions. Vandal kneels next to her. He would do anything for her. But her reticence to do anything for him leaves him miserable. Luthor picks up on that, arguing that Vandal's attitude towards Scandal is what's making him unhappy. Abandon your plans for her and accept who she is. Quote, might happiness not lie in acceptance? Unquote. With a powerful backhand to Luthor's face, Vandal disagrees. Yeah, Luthor says that he wouldn't have bought that crap either. So next, he tries to reason with Vandal. If Vandal is unhappy, then whatever Luthor is supposed to do, he clearly hasn't done it. Killing him will only keep this great happiness from Vandal. Leave him alive, and, if this prophecy is true, then it will come to pass. Which is when a bullet catches Catman in the shoulder, sending the detonator bouncing again. As it lands button side down, Vandal laments the cruelty of false prophecy. And that's to be continued. Yeah, sorry for the cliffhanger, but it's a crossover, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to talk about the issue. Like I said earlier, I like Paul Cornell's writing in general, and coming upon this issue kind of reignited that fire in me. Just looking at the cover got me asking myself if I wanted to buy this run. After all, it's only like 10 issues, that's pretty well contained, and maybe I've changed in the 8 years since it was first released and I first read it. Maybe this time I'll like it. But having read 896 again, I really doubt it. While I'm intrigued at the idea of Luthor being manipulated by outside parties, the rest of this reads more as confusing rather than interesting. What are these black spheres? Why does Vandal want them? And why so badly? He shows up here like a bull in a china shop, and then the Vandal that I know is a much more strategic character. But Cornell writes him as if he thinks Luthor is a happiness tree. Just shake him and watch the happiness fruit fall off. Vandal outmaneuvered Lex Jr. in Villains United, but here he feels dumbed down in order to make Luthor feel clever. And that's a pretty big injustice to that character. It's a further frustrating trade-off as Vandal's dialogue with his daughter is pretty on point. He loves her, he really does. He's just too much of an egomaniac to accept her as she is. And honestly, Luthor reads well too. He's smart in a charming, cunning kind of way. His plea of acceptance to Vandal felt like manipulation, not an actual emotional appeal, and I like him not buying it either. Luthor is almost interesting enough to draw me in as a reader, but the events surrounding him are so messy that my interest fades. To be fair, if I did get the other issues, that would answer a lot of my questions, but a well-written book should intrigue, not confuse. And I'm more confused than intrigued. Woods and Anderson do a good job on the art for this issue. There are a number of small mistakes, though. On page 5, the legs of some of Luthor's board members are visible underneath the conference table. On page 8, when Deadshot leaps into the room, one of the lines from the table passes through his boot. And Vandal's axe vanishes and reappears at random, left wedged in the table in one panel, then it's completely gone in the next. Woods is drawing digitally here, so the line work is all his, and to be fair, it's generally excellent. His characters are on model, although I don't particularly like his Bane, who feels out of proportion. Woods' character drawings are kind of chunky or fleshy, everybody looks soft or squishy. Anderson does a good job on the colors, juggling normal locations like a restaurant and an office with gunfire, costumes, and electrical effects. Overall, despite the flaws, I think that this issue looks great. I think Robo Lois's gun arms might even be a 3D model. They're just so consistent from panel to panel and so detailed that I find it hard to believe that they'd be hand-drawn. Just so you all know, there is a Jimmy Olsen backup feature to this issue, written by Nick Spencer with art by R.B. Silva. It's a lead-in to Jimmy's own series, and it's a pretty fun read. It has nothing to do with our main story, so I'm not going to go into the details, but yeah, it's fun. Nick Spencer is an author that I've really come to enjoy over the years, largely due to his sense of humor and a willingness to explore character routes that others may not, both of which are on display here. Alrighty, let's bounce to Secret 629. The detonator went off at the end of Action Comics 896, killing all of the Secret Six except for Vandal Savage and Black Alice. We are now 80 years in the future, and Black Alice, who is the Sorceress Supreme of the DCU, must assemble a new Six to stop Scandal from fulfilling her destiny and ruling the world. Wow, that started as a joke, but I actually really like that idea. Curses. Gail Simone opens the issue with a dead ragdoll. He has a harp, angel wings, and some flowing white silks, recapping what happened in Action Comics, just in case you didn't buy it. Why wouldn't you buy it? It's a crossover. I don't know, but they recap it anyways, which is a good move, just in case you didn't buy it. And otherwise, we are left where we left off. The detonator has landed button side down. If it's decompressed even a little bit, then they're all dead. Luthor and Vandal then recap their individual narratives. Vandal has wired the building to blow, and he believes in a prophecy that says that Luthor will bring him his personal rapture. Come on, get a room, you two. Hence his attack. In retaliation, Luthor offers Vandal some gum? Vandal begins to rant, and in doing so, realizes what could bring him happiness. Luthor dying. Right here and now. That would just be swell. Holy crap, yeah. He also tells Luthor that the detonator is tied to his heartbeat, so if he dies, then the whole building goes down. Luthor points out that a blast large enough to bring down this building would also kill Vandal and Scandal, and wouldn't that suck? This doesn't worry Vandal, though. He believes in the prophecy, so they will survive. Did everyone just forget the Savage's healing factor? We just saw Scandal get mowed down in Action Comics, and now she's up and standing. Why are two immortals worried about physical harm? I can see Luthor being worried, and I can see the Six being worried, but why would Vandal? How is that a threat to him? Out of nowhere, Vandal announces that Luthor only has 48 seconds before the bombs go off. And I'm sorry, but where, oh Bamfin, where does that come from? I thought that this was a detonator, not a timer. And if the timer is tied to the detonator's button, which hasn't been decompressed yet, how has the timer been activated? Has everyone in this scene gone insane, or is it just me? Is it just me? With the threat of explosion imminent, Luthor activates a personal force field and a hidden turret aiming it at Scandal. This is the real reason why Luthor hired the Six. Not to defeat Vandal or to protect him from him, but for Scandal to act as a living bargaining chip. He threatens to kill Scandal if Vandal doesn't agree to his terms, and for some reason Vandal crumbles! He goes to deactivate the detonator, of which there are only 24 seconds left, by the way, and he finds that it's stuck. So let's hold on there, 'cause I need to rant. What the No swearing is this? This doesn't make any sense from the start to right this moment. I feel like the characters are improvising, like they're just making up this whole book panel by panel. If Lex has a force field that will protect him from the blast, why hire the Six at all? Why is he continually threatening people who can't die? And how did Vandal wire the LexCorp building to explode anyway? That's like Bill Gates setting charges in Apple HQ and no one's the wiser. Like, there's no way that he could get away with that. And if everyone is so worried about the detonator dropping even the smallest bit, why does Vandal Savage just casually walk over to it? This guy is like 6'5", easily 200 plus pounds, and he's generally shown to be a brute. That's who you want walking over to your hair trigger explosive? Your previously a dead man switch, now it's a timer hair trigger explosive? And given that the Savages are the only people who Vandal cares about at all, and remember that they can survive the detonation of this building, remember, healing factors, why not just blow the whole No swearing building? Kill every No swearing one you can, and then just recover from the blast. If we're doing stupid, let's just go stupid. Because if not, then what the No swearing curry poop is this? To her credit, Simone does have Deadshot suggest to Black Alice that she move the detonator using magic. But Alice is so nervous that she's afraid that she'll pee her pants, so yeah, she doesn't exactly think that she can move the detonator without bumping it at all. But if this thing is so sensitive that even magic is too unreliable to move it, then I'm even more sure that Vandal just strolling over and picking it up is an even worse idea. Why not just have Black Alice teleport them all out? She's transported the team before, and hell, she could even take Luthor with him, making sure to fulfill their job of protecting him. You see, this here's the problem with magic users. When they can do bamfing anything with their magic, you need really good reasons for them not to do anything with their magic. Bamfing hell, this is dumb. Oh, and holy No swearing. Yet, a page later, the countdown actually goes from 24 seconds to 25, and then back down to 20. Sweet Christmas fist. Luthor tells Alice to leave the room and remove the explosives, thus negating the detonator. Bane encourages her to do so. Everybody go aw, despite Bane's willingness to sacrifice her at the start of Cat in the Cradle, and she takes Dr. Fate's powers to do just that. While Black Alice is gone, Vandal asks Luthor to save his daughter. If he does, then all hostilities between them will cease. This isn't good enough for Scandal, though. Either all of the Six live, or all of the Six die, forgetting that she has a healing factor. This isn't a good enough offer for Luthor either. He needs Vandal to admit that he's beaten him first. And Vandal does. So Luthor drops his force field, ordering everyone to gather around him. Everyone in the room does. Luthor activates his force field, and the explosion shoots their pink ball of bodies out into the night air. Catman jokes that now would be a great time for Superman to show up and save the day, but Luthor isn't laughing. Black Alice switches from Dr. Fate to Green Lantern, the OG Green Lantern, whose powers are vaguely magic-based, I guess, and catches them all with a green baseball mitt. Catching them doesn't stop them, though. The force of their fall pushes them off of the mitt, and the ball drops. A few confusing panels later, and the ball lands in the smoking debris of LexCorp, I guess? And they're all alive, which is when Luthor says that Vandal's admission of defeat isn't enough anymore. He needs Vandal's servitude as well. Bamfing hell, Lex, you can't change the contract after it's been agreed to. That's bad form, Luthor. Bad form. Vandal just glares at Luthor over that command, so Luthor orders Robo-Lois, who has nanitely pulled herself back together, to shoot Scandal. What in the... She has a healing factor! God, you're all dumb as sh... No swearing! So violence breaks out once more. While Vandal goes for Luthor, the Six handle Robo-Lois and cut off her head. Scandal then tells her father to put Luthor down. The Six have killed too many of their employers. If another dies, their reputation will die with them, and they'll never be hired again, which is kind of cute and a little funny, and I like it. Given that Scandal is unharmed, Vandal will keep his word, and he doesn't kill Luthor. He then offers an alliance, but not servitude. Luthor can work with that. He then tells the Six to clean up as much of this mess as is possible, which is when Scandal punches him. They quit. Bane then warns Luthor not to attempt to harm Scandal again, or he'll have Bane as an enemy. And remember, he broke the bat once before. He then admonishes Vandal for how terrible he is to his daughter, threatening him with violence if he pulls this kind of crap again. Then they leave. Asked about Scandal, quote, what in God's name happened to her, unquote, by Luthor, Vandal tells him of Scandal's mother. In the elevator, Scandal relates the same tale to her teammates. Some time ago, Vandal attempted to conquer Brazil. He was defeated, though, and retreated into the jungles. There, he took over a small village, conscripted the men, and met Scandal's mother. Even after the men surrendered to him, she continued to fight. Vandal came to respect her, and then eventually love her. She, however, settled on a new way to defy him. She married him, became close to him, and birthed him a daughter. And all of this changed Vandal. In his own words, she almost made him like one of you sheep. Then, when Scandal was 3, she killed herself with the Laminas Pesar. This broke Vandal's heart and has left him alone and miserable in a world that brings him no joy. Scandal adds that she was given those same blades on her 9th birthday, and she uses them to fight to this day. Simone also misspells Laminas as Lamines, which isn't a big thing, but in a book that's been so riddled with nonsensical bullshit, it's a minor detail that should be so easy to get right, and it's not right. Why is it not right? No! Deadshot then asks Scandal what kind of payday they just turned down, which sounds like even more bullshit to me because they did the job. They kept Luthor alive long enough for Vandal to not want to kill him, but what do I know? And Scandal says that Luthor promised them an alien solar system filled with comely nymphomaniacs. God, no swearing. I hate this arc. Let's step into the slam before I get into the jam. I obviously have issues with the plot here, and some of that can be attributed to this story relying so heavily on Action Comics' narrative. What is the prophecy that Vandal is all hot for? Why does he believe it? And why does he act against Luthor now of all times? I mean, it's clear that Luthor was expecting Vandal to show up. That's the whole impetus for hiring the Six. But we, the audience, are never informed why or how Luthor knew about this, or why or how Vandal is taking action. I do want to point out that Cornell is leaning heavily into the writing style of a prose author. He's writing to the entire story, not to a single monthly installment, and that's why Action Comics reads so poorly to me. A lot of the problems I have would be solved if I had read the 5 issues that came before it, or the trade paperback that these would eventually be collected in, but I didn't, and I don't, so that's a problem. There are a lot of modern authors who write this way, and it can be really hit or miss depending on who you're reading. Rick Remender and Ed Brubaker really read better in a whole arc. I'm not saying that you can't write to the trade well, but I don't think that this is the arc to do it with. Those authors, you can still read a single issue of their book and still have a good, enjoyable time with it. It just reads better when you read it as part of the arc. That doesn't happen here with Action Comics, where reading the single issue is still kind of terrible and dumb a little bit, whereas reading in a whole narrative may fix that problem, but that's not what this was built to do for. After all, if the best way to read this is in trade paperback format, then is Secret 6 issue 29 going to be collected in that collection as well? because that'd be weird to me, and normally trade paperbacks don't collect crossover issues that way. So then why would you do a monthly event in a story that's meant to be read in one sitting? The remaining meat of the plot then relies heavily on threatening two immortals who can't die with death. And if you don't see why that is dumb, I can't help you. The cartoonish detonator situation doesn't help, the shifting stakes are annoying, and the Six's reward here at the end is stupid. Out of all of the things that a guy like Luthor could offer, Simone goes with a sex solar system? The Six are mercenaries with healthy sex lives. Just offer them some no swearing money, dude. Or an IOU for a favor against Amanda Waller. That might come in handy down the line. This reward just makes the whole arc feel even more like a joke, putting me in a pretty sour mood here at the end. And does it show my sour mood? Can you tell? I'm even more annoyed because this isn't even a good Secret Six story. Now, we saw the Six guest star in Birds of Prey, and I commented that while they aren't our focus for that story, they're still well written, lovable, and true to their character. But here, they're dopey, they're frustrating, and even in Simone's issue, they feel like an afterthought. This is an action comic story for sure, and it does the Six no favors. To be fair, there are good moments. Keyword, moments. At one point, when Vandal says how happy he would be to see Luthor die, Catman tells Scandal that her dad might be worse than his, and this is the first time that Blake has mentioned his personal life to the Six at all. Scandal reminds him to talk to her about her 9th birthday, the day that she got the Laminas Pesar, another thing that we, as the audience, know but has never been shared with the Six. So there's attention to character detail being paid, it's just super duper light. Catman's joke about Superman to Luthor is pretty good, though. When they're falling, Bane comments about how beautiful Metropolis is, which is another thing that I like. Bane typically operates in Gotham, which is very old and has the feel of a rundown city. Metropolis, in comparison, is a glittering, futuristic city. That grandeur touching Bane in these potentially his final moments is a nice character touch. Maybe you should stop trying to conquer Gotham and go for Metropolis once, man. Bane's threats to Luthor and Vandal are in character as well. Vandal should thank God that Bane wasn't on the team during the Six miniseries. And I enjoyed learning the fate of Scandal's mother, tragic as it is. That was something I actually wondered about back in the Six miniseries, and reading this, I'm not surprised that I don't remember Mom's fate. Simone also has the weird joke of dead Ragdoll appearing throughout the issue. I'm not sure why she would use him as a framing device at all. Ragdoll's appearance pretty much ends every time with, "And we all died," only to reveal that no one died at all. I'm assuming that this is just a lame joke that I don't get. They can't all be winners. Marcos Mars penciled issue 29, while Luciana Del Negro provided inks, and good old Jason Wright did the colors. Artistically, the book looks pretty good. Mars and Del Negro's artwork actually resembles Pete Wood's quite a bit in that they're both soft and fleshy looking. They pack a lot of detail into a page as well, especially when drawing faces. The weird thing is that their face artwork gets less detailed the more they zoom in on a face. Shots of Vandal or Luthor from a distance have them wrinkled, while closing in on them causes all of those wrinkles to disappear. That's not how vision works. Things should get more detailed the closer we get to them. Their art works well on something like Ragdoll's mask, which is one solid plastic or ceramic piece, but it looks kind of odd on a mask like Bane's or Deadshot's, which are made of cloth and are meant to obscure details. Like, you can make out details of Deadshot's face underneath his mask, which has never been portrayed like that at all throughout this comic book. There are some artistic inconsistencies between our two issues as well. The dead bodies of Vandal's men from Action Comics 896 disappear in Secret 629. There's no combat damage to the boardroom in 29 either, and that desk definitely had an axe in it at some point. While Paul Cornell and Gail Simone clearly had to work together to make their issues match overall, I'm guessing that there was little communication between the art teams. This is still, like, the least offensive part of this two-issue experience, but it bared some discussion. So okay, Reptile Brain was a bit dumb, I'll fully admit it. But this crossover was shockingly worse. But it's over, so thanks Stan Lee for that. We can move on to our next arc, and hopefully, better times. Issue 30 kicks off a crossover with another old enemy of the Secret Six, the Doom Patrol. A new criminal empire called Crush is looking to set up shop on Oolong Island, which the Doom Patrol call home. This isn't known to the Secret Six, who take the job to clear it out, and violence shockingly breaks out. Join me next week for Suicide Roulette. Everyone, there are a million podcasts vying for your time and attention, and I'd like to thank you for listening to mine. If you would like to get in touch with me to share a concern, request a series, compliment me, berate me, whatever you like, send me an email at cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Otherwise, thanks for listening.